No stairway. Denied.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Where John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the aforementioned show. Today is the last day, hard to believe, John, last day of September, and not only for corporate guys like you, last day of third quarter. Crazy.
Yeah, we're heading right into Q4, Brad. What are your big plans for Q4 besides trying to stay alive? And are you going to give us an update on that, or is it just kind of like, I go to a Friday group that I don't want to talk about?
Briefly, I'll talk more about it in the C block, but briefly, on September 3rd, for like the 9th or 10th year in a row, I went to one of the Dave Sinclair prostate screening sites. They do this for free. You go in, blood test. A week or so later, you get a letter in the mail, said, hey, everything's good. Well, this year I didn't get that letter. I got a phone call that is not so good. So I went to the doctor, had a blood test, had a prostate exam. Then that test came back even worse. So matter of fact, it's funny you should bring that up because I didn't talk about this yesterday. Sunday morning at 6:30, this past Sunday morning, I had a MRI. So I'm waiting on the results of that. So I don't quite know, tell you the truth. So don't know about that.
6:30 a.m. on Sunday, Brad.
Yes.
Are you serious? I didn't know that stuff went on at 6:30 a.m. on a Sunday.
Well,
it's the Lord's Day.
Well, let me put it to you this way. When I got my results on Friday, which were not good, I said to the lady, she says, you need to have an MRI as soon as we can get you in. I went, when is that? She says, can you be here Sunday at 6:30? I said, yes, I can, because I'm an early riser even on the weekend. So I was out there. Matter of fact, the crazy thing was it was a standalone place out in Chesterfield Valley called Reyes, which is their MRI people out there. And I show up in the parking lot, and there's 2 cars in the parking lot. I'm thinking to myself, am I in the right place? Sure enough, I was. I was the very first patient that day. So, yeah. That was my story. So I don't know. I'm still sort of up in the air. So, I made it to 90. I mean, maybe
That's true, bro.
Maybe this is it for me. Maybe I'm on the slippery slope down, into the nether region, whatever you call it. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean,
at your age and your hip, Brad, I would stay away from all slippery slopes.
Well, John, if you really want me to be honest with you, it's funny you should mention that because at my place, I have a very steep slope that I had to trim the grass sometime. And on Sunday, after I had this MRI, I'm coming down the hill and I trip on my pants leg, which was ripped up because I've got an old pair of pants that part of the cuff is like ripped off. I tripped on that thing, which was laying, on my other foot. And I fell down the berm. It's like a berm. And I fell onto my knees and my arms. I thought to myself, I have broken my wrist. And I sat there for about 5 minutes trying to compose myself and finally got up and moved my wrist around a little bit and thought to myself, it still hurts like hell, so it still may be broken for all I know. But yeah, that's my Sunday. Was that fun or what?
Yeah, I'm glad I opened Pandora's box there, Brad. And in our top 3 today, we'll be talking about attorneys that are not slip and fall attorneys. And we'll also be talking about a broken wrist.
And to make matters worse, I worked at the crap transmitter site on Sunday, and I think I got poison ivy. But that's a whole nother story.
Oh, Brad. And you got possessed by the ghost of Sacagawea.
Yes. Did I have a good Sunday or what? Okay, that is John Combest, Combest. I spell his name because you need to put it in your computer. JohnCombest.com. And what he does is every single day for the past 23 years, we've got an anniversary coming up, but he won't say when it is. But every single day for the past 23 years, he puts together this incredible list of all this important stuff you should know that's gone to the state of Missouri. It's all on his website, but what we do is and I love that term, we curate it. I should say John curates it into the top 3. We bring in this fine gentleman. Your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start off with?
In third place.
You mentioned slipping and falling, Brad. Maybe you could get a slip and fall attorney. I'll tell you 2 men that are not slip and fall attorneys. That's Elijah Haahr, our friend from down I-44 way at KWTO Radio. He had a super attorney on, a powerful attorney in the state of Missouri, but more than just powerful, knowledgeable. Marc Ellinger. He is the top GOP election expert, unparalleled, probably the top GOP attorney in the state of Missouri. And he explained all the stuff going on with these redistricting lawsuits. If you're like me, Brad, you look at these headlines and it seems like every week there's a brand new lawsuit against this new redistricting map. So Elijah had his fellow attorney, Marc, to describe what the heck is going on with all these. And I'll give you a real quick breakdown via Marc. Marc said there's 4 that are going on, Brad. The first one, and Marc described them as coming from the, quote, usual suspects. The first one comes from the NAACP. And their argument is that the government doesn't even have the authority to call a special session. That the governor didn't even have the authority to call a special session. Marc calls that laughable. He says the NAACP lawsuit is just laughable. But then he talks about 2 more that are coming on. And one of them is from a really credible guy named Chuck Hatfield. And folks that follow Missouri politics know the name Chuck Hatfield because he's pretty much Marc's counterpart on the Democrat side. So if Democrats ever want to gum up something in the works, they bring Chuck Hatfield in. And Chuck's able to challenge things on behalf of the Democrats. And Chuck's main argument, and this one is in Cole County, according to Marc, Chuck Hatfield's argument is, look, you can only do redistricting 1 time a decade, and you do it immediately after the census. And if you try to do it any other time, well, it's not going to work that way. Now, another lawsuit is coming from the Elias law firm. And if you have to be super into election law to have heard of these guys, but there's a big attorney named Marc Elias, and he's all over social media talking about how Republicans are terrible and all that stuff. And his argument from his law firm is that you can't just take the 5th congressional district and make it less compact. Now, the trick of that argument, Brad, as Elijah and Marc explain, is that this new map actually makes districts more compact. So look at St. Charles County. The new map doesn't split up St. Charles County. It puts St. Charles County all in one district. So from Marc's analysis here, Marc Ellinger's analysis of Marc Elias's lawsuit, that one isn't going to hold much water either. And then Marc details the 4th lawsuit, which you've probably seen in the headlines, which comes from the American Commie Lovers Union, the ACLU, which says that in Kansas City, map makers made an error. They put 2 of the same precincts in the same or in different congressional districts, and you can't do that. And Republicans were in a big hurry to make a map, and they messed up. And Marc explains that designation is actually made by the folks in Jackson County. So Marc really discounts that argument and says that that's probably not going to carry much weight. That's how I understood Marc's comments. And then Elijah, being the expert interviewer that he is, says, okay, so after all these lawsuits, what do you think the most likely outcome is? That's a great question. And Marc says he thinks that Missourians are going to vote for this. And we just saw yesterday news from the Democratic National Committee is going to dump a bunch of money in the state of Missouri to assist signature gathering. So as you'll recall us talking about over the last couple of weeks, Brad, these liberal groups are going to collect signatures. And if they get enough signatures, then that means that Missourians will actually have to vote on the new congressional map, likely next November. So I guess what Marc is saying is despite all this legal hubbub, Missourians are going to have to end up voting on these new maps next year anyway.
Well, what good would that do for the 2026 congressional election then?
No, it does no good, Brad. And I think that's the point. I mean, the Democrats thing is you want to at least delay this. And if I was the Democrats, here's the way I'd look at it. Okay, we get this, we do the signature gathering, we get it on the ballot, we kill the congressional maps. That gives Emanuel Cleaver another 2 years to be an 80-year-old guy that putzes around D.C. And then we give a guy like Quentin Lucas in Kansas City a chance to actually move into the 5th district. It gives us a chance to figure out who our candidate is going to be to replace Emanuel Cleaver and try to take on whatever Republican runs in that district. So if you're Democrats, you just want 2 more years to get your ducks in a row.
Okay, John, I'm going to ask you a dumb question, and maybe this is not dumb from a listener's perspective, but unless you're a political geek. So as it stands right at this moment, is the new map, I know he signed it on Sunday, is the new map essentially in effect right now? Is that the way it is right now?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, there's certainly legal challenges, but as of now, he signed it into law 48 hours ago.
Right.
So it's now law. I mean, of course, it's being challenged. So, yes, as of now, it's law.
So if the Democrats can get enough signatures, then that would that force it to take it off the books until November?
Yeah, I believe that's the way it works. They have until December to gather all these signatures. And as Mark did a great job, Mark and Elijah both did a great job explaining this in the interview. Once Kehoe signs it into law, Democrats have 90 days. I should say liberals have 90 days to gather enough signatures to force a vote on the law. So the clock started Sunday. I think Elijah said during the Chiefs game, the clock starts on Sunday. Democrats have 90 days to gather their signatures. And I think Elijah and Mark said they have to gather in the ballpark of like 110,000 signatures.
So essentially they've got almost to the end of the year, a couple days before.
You're
the
exactly
end of the year.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in that case, Brad, I believe the new congressional district maps are not in effect and that they could be challenged.
God, this is so weird. You know,
It's convoluted, and that's why we need a guy like Elijah and Mark to come on and put it in plain language. I linked to it today, Brad. And if you want to pull the old Johnny Combine trick, just go to Apple Podcasts and click on transcript, and then you can read verbatim. You know, I'm not the quickest guy, Brad. Sometimes I got to read stuff a few times. And that's the great thing about having a transcript right there.
how old a guy is Marc Ellinger?
I judge people based on where they are compared to my siblings. I would say he's roughly my sister's age. So I would say Mark is maybe 52.
Is his father by chance Rory? Do you know who?
No, I don't know. I don't think he's related to Rory. Didn't Rory run for something in St. Charles County?
Yeah, he was an attorney, but he lived. I think he lived in U City. I think he was on the U City Planning and Zoning Commission.
You're right. I do associate that name with U City. Funny anecdote about Mark, and I've told Mark this story before. When I was a young buck getting involved in campaigns, 94, 95, 96, Mark's name was on yard signs. So I assumed when I saw this name, Marc Ellinger, I'm like, oh, that's just an old crabby attorney guy, probably with white hair. And then I met Mark years later, and he was not an old crabby guy. And so I believe he was the treasurer for Margaret Kelly, fun fact, first Missouri statewide elected official that was a woman. She was a state auditor, and she ran in 96 for governor against Taxman Carnahan.
Wow.
And Mark's name was on those yard signs. So I just always assumed that Mark was an old guy, and he's not. He's a Gen X guy.
John, I'll tell you a weird story. I'll try to keep it brief because I know we got to move along here. At least I knew, she won't talk to me anymore, but I knew Rory Ellinger's widow. And interestingly enough, the reason I knew her because of the fact that she was on the KWMU board. She was on the board of directors of KWMU. And I got into, I don't want to say a fight, but she got very upset with me because that was at the time when they made a decision to take over KMST in Rolla, because KMST used to have their own staff and their own public radio stuff, NPR affiliate, but they had their own staff there. And now if you listen to KWMU and they do the top of the hour ID, they do KWMU, they do KMST, they do the station stuff. So those are just satellite stations. And she never spoke to me since. She's at the point where after I had that discussion with her, she had nothing to do with me because I dared question. Because I told her, I said, I think this is bad for the radio business. You're getting rid of jobs. And she was like, well, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to do. And essentially, tough S if you don't like it. Okay, fine.
Yeah, she said tough S. And then she said, Brad, on September 30th, you're probably going to complain about the fact that KDHX owners have now applied for new call letters. And it's on the homepage of STLtoday.com. And Brad has time to look at that story while I talk through story number 2.
And the bizarre part of it is they've filed an application with the FCC to go off the air, but their transmitter's up, but there's no audio on it. I'm going, what the hell is this? Okay, here we go to number 2.
In third place,
she put that sugar on my tongue, yippee, yippee, yum, yum. Goody, goody gumdrops put me in a tongue lock. Did it till my body went numb, numb. Later on her back, turned around, gave her bottom a smack, smack. Brad, where you at on sugary snacks?
John, your knowledge of rap cracks me up. Where am I on sugary snacks?
Yeah, where you at on, Brad, is there like a sugary snack you like to eat in the morning while I'm going through, I don't know, A block?
Matter of fact, I'm right here eating my fall party cakes from Little Debbie's. Yes, I love those.
So you're a big snack cake guy, right?
Oh, I love. Well, just the fall party cakes. I'm disappointed. That's the only ones they do. They're my kind of party cakes. But anyway,
Well,
yeah.
Brad, if you were to go into Schnucks, as you like to do after the show, but you weren't paying with your own money, you were paying with SNAP benefits, you might have to either adjust your diet a little bit, or you might have to come out of pocket for those Little Debbies. A story from the Jefferson City News Tribune. And I'll point of personal privilege, really disappointed there aren't more stories about this in Missouri media today. I know there's a lot going on in the political world, but come on, guys. Why is there only one news story about this? Anyway, Governor Kehoe announced yesterday what he's calling a refocus of Missouri's SNAP program. And we have limited time here today, Brad, so I'll just hit the highlights here. I guess if you're altering your state's welfare program, you have to go to the feds and you have to file paperwork with the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. And you have to say, look, we're going to tinker with the regulations. And in the state of Missouri, you're not going to use your welfare money to buy a bunch of Little Debbie fall snack cakes. No, you're going to use it to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, meat, fish, poultry, other proteins, healthier foods. Go fritter away your money on your grape soda, Red Hot Riplets, and Little Debbie snack cakes. That's fine. But you're not going to do it with taxpayer money. So if you go to the News Tribune story today, you'll see a little info from Kehoe. If you go to the actual press release, which I did, you see great quotes from Missouri Department of Agriculture Director Chris Chen. You'll also see quotes from DSS explaining why we need to use SNAP money and welfare money, why we need to move those resources out of junk food and into healthier food. Now, Brad, what do you think about welfare money for junk food?
First off, it's fall party cakes, John. You got to get the
product. I'm sorry, Brad.
I don't, this whole thing is ridiculous. I don't understand this whole argument because of the fact that if you're going to give the money away or the benefits away, let them buy whatever they want. Crown Royal, I don't care. I mean, I really don't. I mean, it's to the point where I think the whole thing is ridiculous because you can buy this, but you can't buy that. You can't buy this, but you can buy that. It's just,
Well, you can't buy alcohol. You can't buy tobacco with your SNAP money.
I'd say let them buy anything. I say
they should go to fastfoodmediet.com and they should hear what all the hubbub is about when it comes to Brad's diet. Brad, with 0 minutes left, can we get into story number one?
Yes, here it is.
The number one.
Yesterday, we talked about a Democrat slap fight in North St. Louis County and Bellefontaine neighbors. Well, to quote a radio legend who we all grew up with, and now the rest of the story. Joe Holloman of the Post-Dispatch. St. Louis County Councilwoman said that she was assaulted by a state senator. That was yesterday's headline. But now there's the rest of the story, Brad, which is Senator Angela Mosley. She was the one that was the supposed aggressor in the first version of the story. Ms. Mosley comes out and says, oh, P.S., I have a sprained wrist. I have a broken finger. I have swelling and bruising on my face. And it's because of Shalonda Webb. That's right, Brad. In a unique twist, Miss Webb came out and said she was the victim. But in a court case filed on Monday, Angela Mosley and her sister, Rochelle Walton Gray, along with their husbands, let's put a pin in that one, said that Webb was actually the attacker. And Angela Mosley, the state senator, has all these injuries, Brad. She also has sprains to her neck, her shoulder, and her back. She had to go to an urgent care facility to get looked at after this vicious alleged attack on Thursday. And real quick, Brad, I know we're up against time. Both sisters, that's Mosley and her sister Rochelle Walton Gray, claim they suffered, quote, emotional trauma, public humiliation, fear for their safety, and ongoing psychological distress. They want at least $25,000 from Miss Webb. You say, John, what do the husbands have to do with it? Well, they're plaintiffs in the case too. Their former state rep, Jay Mosley, and former state rep, Alan Gray. They're married to the sisters. And those gentlemen claim that they've been harmed by, quote, loss of companionship, society, affection, and emotional support resulting from the injuries to their respective spouses. So, Brad, it's not just Angela and Rochelle that were injured. Their husbands are injured too because they're dealing with the injuries that their wives endured. Brad, this is a unique twist. And I guess it goes to show that we read the first version of the story. Maybe it's not completely accurate. Maybe Angela and Rochelle have something to say.
John, there was a time when you and I lived in North County, and we didn't have these kind of problems. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so, Brad. I think boy, that's the understatement of the year. You could say that about every Spanish Lake crime report we've ever read.
Well, the other thing was you sent me this morning, and believe it or not, I watched it. First off, it ticked me off because John sends me this link to a YouTube video, which was 2 years ago at the demolition ceremonies for Jamestown Mall. Okay, I spent a lot of time at Jamestown Mall, being a North County kid, and I like Jamestown Mall. So matter of fact, let's talk about this in C Block because
please do. I love this.
I still don't quite understand what happened 2 years ago. This is a video. It's on YouTube. Matter of fact, if you want, we'll give the link out somehow, or it's one of those crazy links, but we'll tell you how to search for it. I'm going like, I don't understand what's going on here. But the thing that got me about it, these two women, the two who were essentially the reason you sent it was there was already bad blood 2 years ago with these two ladies, correct?
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I think at the time we would have said that it came to a head that day, but It seems to have come to a head at the Bell Fountain Neighbors City Hall.
But you know what bothered me the most about that video, John?
What is that?
It wasn't about the demolition of Jamestown Mall. It wasn't about the citizens of North County. It was these two wingbats going at each other, and it's all about them. I'm going like, okay, put your personal, crap aside and be whatever you are, a rep or a county rep or a state senator or whatever you are. Don't make it all about you. You know what I'm saying?
I do know. I mean, I think that both sides of them would say they were either having to defend themselves or set the record straight.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it in C Block, Brad, because the video is fascinating.
It's so frustrating because of the fact that it's all about them. It's all about them. It's all about them. And if you don't believe it, they'll ask them and they'll tell you it's all about them. Okay. I'm sorry, John. My GPS clock is not doing very well this morning. Okay. Let me re-cue here.